Level 1. The institution. You've run Caldwell Correctional for 11 years. 1,400 inmates, 280 staff, a budget that's been cut 4 times in the last decade, and a state oversight board that visits twice a year, spends 3 hours walking the clean hallways, and leaves satisfied. You know how to prepare for those visits, the way a restaurant knows how to prepare for a health inspector. The real facility and the one they see are 2 different places. You didn't start corrupt. That's the thing people never believe, but it's true. You came up as a corrections officer at 23, worked your way through every rank, believed in rehabilitation when rehabilitation was still a word people used without laughing. You've watched this institution slowly become something else over 11 years, and somewhere in that time, you became something else too. You didn't notice the exact moment. That's how it works in places like this. The institution doesn't change you all at once. It just wears down the parts of you that resist until resistance costs more than it returns. The first conversation happens in your office on a Tuesday afternoon. A man named Garrett, mid-level distributor, serving 8 years, 2 years in. He's polite, well-spoken, the kind of inmate who did his research before he sat down. He doesn't ask for anything dramatic. He just wants to know if a certain cell block officer could be reassigned to a different wing. He has people on that wing he'd prefer weren't supervised by someone that attentive. In exchange, he gestures toward a number. $4,000 a month, cash, delivered through a channel he's already worked out. He says the channel like it's a word he's used before in rooms like this. It probably is. You tell him you'll think about it. He nods like that means yes, because in this building, think about it usually does. Level 2. The arrangement. The officer gets reassigned. You write it up as a staffing efficiency decision. Nobody questions it because nobody questions the warden on staffing. The first envelope arrives 3 days later through a deputy who doesn't ask what's in it, and you don't tell him. $4,000 in a plain envelope left in the bottom drawer of your desk by someone you never see. Clean, quiet, untraceable if you're careful about how you spend it. You're careful. That's the part that matters at the beginning. You don't change anything visible. Same car, same house, same lunch from the same deli. The money sits in a personal account you opened at a bank 2 counties over. You treat it like it's radioactive, which in a sense it is. You tell yourself you'll stop after 6 months. That this is a temporary arrangement to cover the gap between what the state pays you and what it actually costs to run your life. Your mother needs home care. Your son's tuition went up again. The roof on your house has been a problem for 2 years. The money solves real problems. That's what makes it easy to keep. Garrett's requests stay small at first. Cell block assignments, visitation scheduling. Once, a blind eye to a package that came through intake with a manifest that didn't quite match its contents. You don't ask what was in the package. Not asking is the skill you develop fastest. Not asking is how you sleep. 6 months becomes a year. The arrangement expands because arrangements always expand. A second inmate, connected to Garrett's network on the outside, needs similar accommodations. Then a third. You're not running one arrangement anymore. You're running a system. $14,000 a month coming in through 3 separate channels. You've built something without meaning to build it, which is its own kind of corruption. The kind where you look up one day and realize the infrastructure around you is yours, and you never drew a blueprint. Level 3. The control. Here's what nobody understands about running a corrupt institution. You still have to run the institution. The paperwork still needs filing. The oversight visits still need managing. The genuine problems, the fights, the mental health crises, the officer misconduct that has nothing to do with your arrangements, still land on your desk and still require real decisions. You're not a criminal who pretends to be a warden. You're a warden who also runs a criminal operation inside his own walls. The cognitive load of that is something you carry every single day. You have a deputy warden named Okafor. 12 years in corrections, honest the way some people are honest. not as a choice, but as a baseline. She's good at her job in ways that occasionally create problems for yours. She notices things. A pattern in contraband that doesn't match typical entry points. An inmate with no outside connections who suddenly has money on his commissary account. She brings these things to you because you're her boss and that's what she's supposed to do. You listen carefully, redirect her attention toward conclusions that don't lead anywhere useful, and make a mental note to be more careful. This happens 4 times in 18 months. Each time she gets a little closer. Each time you manage it. You tell yourself you're protecting her from something complicated. That's not entirely a lie, but it's not the whole truth either. The whole truth is that Okafor is the most dangerous person in this building, and she doesn't know it. Level 4, the cost. The system runs clean for 2.5 years. Then a guard named Petty gets arrested off-site for an unrelated matter. DUI, nothing serious. Except when they process him, they find $800 in cash he can't explain, and a phone with contacts he definitely shouldn't have. Petty isn't part of your arrangement directly, but he's adjacent to it in ways that a thorough investigator would eventually trace. He lawyers up immediately. His lawyer starts making noises about cooperation deals. You find out through Garrett, who finds out through channels you've never asked about. You have maybe 3 weeks before someone starts pulling threads. 3 weeks to decide what your next move is. Garrett's suggestion is practical and immediate, and the first time since this started that the word he uses in your office makes your stomach drop. You tell him no. You tell him that is not something you will be part of, and if that's where this is going, then this is over. He looks at you the way people look at someone who just said something naive. He doesn't argue. He just says he understands and leaves. You sit in your office after he's gone, and you realize you've just defined your own limit, and the only reason you know where it is because someone just asked you to cross it. Everything before this moment was negotiable. This isn't. That distinction probably doesn't mean as much as you want it to, but it's what you have. You call Okafor into your office the next morning. You close the door. You tell her to pull everything she's been building on the commissary discrepancy and bring it to you by end of day. She looks at you for a long moment, reading something in your face she's been looking for a long time. She doesn't say anything. She just nods and leaves. Level 5, the reckoning. The report Okafor puts on your desk that afternoon is 40 pages. She's been building it quietly for 8 months. It doesn't have your name in it yet, but it has everything that leads to your name. You read it twice. Then you pick up the phone and call the State Inspector General's office directly, bypassing every layer of bureaucracy between you and that call. You ask for a meeting. They ask what it's regarding. You tell them you have information about systemic corruption at Caldwell Correctional, and you'd like to discuss your options. There's a pause on the line. Then they say tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. You go home that night. You sit on the back porch for a long time, looking at a yard you've been meaning to fix up for 3 years. Your son calls. You talk for 20 minutes about nothing important. You don't tell him what's happening because there's no version of that conversation that helps either of you tonight. After you hang up, you sit there until it's dark. And then you go inside. And you don't sleep much, but you sleep some. The meeting lasts 4 hours. You tell them everything. The arrangement with Garrett, the channels, the amounts, the names of the officers who were reassigned, the package through intake you didn't ask about. All of it. Your attorney sits next to you and says very little because there isn't much to say. You're not negotiating innocence. You're negotiating the shape of what comes next. You resign before they can remove you. That part matters to you more than it probably should. You surrender your credentials on a Thursday afternoon with 2 investigators present. Okafor is running the facility by Friday morning. She doesn't need a transition period. She's been ready for years. The plea agreement takes 4 months to finalize. 18 months in a federal facility, 3 years probation, permanent bar from public employment. Garrett gets a separate indictment. His network takes longer to unwind, but they unwind it. Petty cooperates and gets his sentence reduced. The deputy who delivered the envelopes quietly retires, and that arrangement is complicated enough that charges are never filed. You serve 14 months with good behavior. When you walk out, your son is in the parking lot. He drove 4 hours to be there. You didn't ask him to. He just showed up because that's the kind of person he is, which has nothing to do with the kind of person you were for the last 3 years, and everything to do with the kind of person you were before that. You don't go back to corrections. You work for a nonprofit that does reentry support for formerly incarcerated people. The irony of that isn't lost on you, and nobody you work with lets you forget it, which is probably fair. Some of the people you help were at Caldwell while you were running it. You don't know what to do with that except keep showing up. So that's what you do. You keep showing up. This story is fiction, but somewhere right now, a person with a set of keys and a title and just enough access is telling themselves the arrangement is temporary. It never is.